You're watching The Daily on Shaw TV Channel 4. We've got a great show lined up for you today. Melanie Panetta is back with Sprott Shaw's Hired Learning. Now, in this first episode of the brand new series, she tests out her skills at being a groundskeeper for the Vancouver Canadians. We're going to visit Darcy Island with Jen Morenitz, and a historic look back at some not fantastic uses of that beautiful place that is very underutilized in the Gulf Islands Regional Park. We're also going to check in with Melissa Hall for some summer driving tips. But before we get to any of that, who are these people? Well, that's Kerri Isham and Jane Moxam and Jesse Moxam. And why are we here in their living room? Well, it goes back to a story that we did here on Shaw TV back in the spring of this year. I met a young man named Jesse, that's him over there, and shared his story about being transgendered in the community. And all these people are together as a result of this story. We'll tell you more about why and how and what that means after we have a look at Jesse's story. That story first aired back in March, and as we had hoped that some good would come out of that story, it did. Kerri Isham is with Power Up Workshops. You saw that story and was inspired to what?
Well, as a sexual health educator, it's really important to me that when I'm teaching, that I'm reaching all the students in the class. So for selfish reasons, I wanted to meet Jesse and his family to find out how he managed through the school system and the support that they got and the support that maybe they would need in the future.
And that led to something even bigger. As Kerri admits, it was a little bit selfish, getting to know Jesse and his family as a way to help educate. And that led to something more, a bigger relationship and some big hopes for the future for everybody.
Yeah, what we're hoping to do is to raise enough money for Jesse so that he can have his top surgery, so that he can show up as he feels he is as a man in the world.
It was heartbreaking for you to watch how having to bind himself and hide who he is on a daily basis, and you just said, what, this kid needs some help. His life has got to be better.
Yeah, it was really important to me just as a parent that my daughter is able to show up in the world as she is. And so when I saw Jesse's story, it really strung a chord with me. And as a parent, we all want the best for our kids, and we want them to feel happy and to have hope for the future. And that's what I wanted to help Jesse with.
And that top surgery is the biggest key at this stage.
It is.
In Jesse's life. Now, I didn't warn you about this question, but what have you learned about transgender that maybe as a sex educator you didn't know until your interactions with Jesse?
Well, I think what I learned, there's a ton of help out there, actually. There's a clinic in Vancouver. There's a health and wellness center in Vancouver that specifically work with transgendered youth. I learned about a yearly group meeting with families in the United States where people can come and get the most up-to-date information. Young people, there's a dance, and they have all sorts of workshops for all age groups, and it's just a way for them to feel as normal as possible.
Thank you, Kerri. We will have Kerri back later on this edition of The Daily to tell you all of the details about the fundraiser. It's on September the 16th at the Rod and Gun. The goal is to raise $10,000 through that event and others in the community to help Jesse with his top surgery so that he can live the life that he was meant to lead. We'll also talk with Jesse later on this edition of The Daily. We'll be back with more after the break. You're watching The Daily on Shaw TV Channel 4, and today we're hanging out with Jesse Moxam and his family. Why? Because there's a huge fundraiser underway. It's going to take place on September the 16th out at the Rod and Gun in Parksville, and the goal is to raise enough money at that event and other events that have been happening around it to get Jesse top surgery. Why is that so important? What kind of changes is that going to make for your life?
I'll be able to wear just t-shirts or just going to the beach with friends and being able to go swimming and not having to wear clothes that are 10 times too big for me. And it's gonna boost my confidence majorly, and it's just gonna make me so much more happier and less like depressed, and just be able to show people that I'm still here and I'm going even stronger than I was like a year ago.
Because you'd hope to have the surgery by the time you graduated. That's come and gone now.
Oh yeah.
You're still having to hide who you are and how you want to show up in life. What's it been like working with Kerri? Like, you sort of maybe after graduation thought, oh, I'm not where I wanted to be, but have things been turning around, would you say?
Yeah, they've been doing great with all her support and helping with the fundraisers and trying to help me raise money for my surgery. It's just been such a relief and a weight off my shoulder, and I'm just so grateful that she's here to help me.
And you guys are working on some other bigger plans for maybe a year or two down the road. What do you hope to be doing in a little while from now?
Going into schools and telling them about my story, and just how I've came off and been treated in high school, and just maybe help people understand how hard it is and what transgender really does mean, and just share our story together and hope to educate people.
Did you ever see yourself like you're going to be a role model, a leader, a person who helps others? Did you ever picture yourself as that person?
Not one bit.
I could see you just sort of bursting though with the joy of it all. It's a good thing
Yeah,
for you.
it'll be good. I'm really looking forward to it, and hopefully it'll boost my confidence a lot too, just going into school and talking to kids and letting them know how it is and stuff.
And you've got a job now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's going good. It's a little scary going to the workforce for the first time and having to deal with whether or not to tell people or keep it to myself and such like that, but it's going good so far, and it'll help me get to my surgery closer.
All right. Do you think this is a question I didn't actually warn you about, I'm always doing this, just throwing it out there. And I hesitate to ask because it's such a huge issue. What do you think the one thing, if you could narrow it down, that people don't understand about transgendered?
That it's not a choice, it's how we are, and we don't have a choice whether or not we want to be like this or not. And I don't think people understand it at all. I think they think it's a stage, or that we can just go back and I could have just lived, like, why can't I just live my life as a female? Like, that's what a lot of people think, but it's not like that. We don't have a choice. This is the way we were, and we can't change it. And I'm sure a lot of people, if they could, they would, because it's not an easy life at all. And I don't wish it upon anyone.
Jesse, thank you. And good luck. I'm feeling happy. I think Jesse's going to be a trailblazer for other people, and living the life that he wants to live and helping others. And that is what we're trying to do here with this fundraiser that's taking place on September the 16th. We'll be back chatting with Jesse's mom and more from Kerri Isham about the fundraiser and how you can participate. In the meantime, here's Melissa Hall with a summer driving tip. But first, we're taking a little boat ride with Jen Moranitz over to Darcy Island. You're watching The Daily on Shaw TV Channel 4. This show is dedicated to a young man in our community named Jesse Moxam. We featured a story on this edition that first aired back in spring of 2012. A transgendered teen just trying to be who he knows he is and showing up authentically in the world. There's a big fundraiser for him so that he can get top surgery. This is his mom, Jane. And I have to say, Jane, when we first did that story, there was so much feedback from people going, that lady rocks, because to support your kid unconditionally is something you don't think twice about.
Well, it's not something I think twice about, no. I think that's what being a parent is you support your child no matter what. You may not always understand what they're going through, but you have to be behind your kid. And like Jesse said before, this isn't a phase, this is who he is. And so I have to respect that. And
what do you see him going through?
Ooh, an
Must be
awful
hard to
lot.
watch.
Yeah, it really is. He goes through an awful lot of emotion and stuff. It's very, very difficult, especially in the summer, because he has to bind and wear really thick, heavy clothing, and it's just brutal. So that's why we really want to get the surgery done as quickly as possible, so that he can really feel a lot better about himself. And this is who he really is, but this is who he is inside, but his body needs to match, and that's really, really important.
As I'm known for, I'm going to go in a completely different direction than what I told Jane we were going to go. People might want, again, going back to people thinking it's a phase.
Yeah.
I've looked through your family album,
Yeah.
and this is Jesse from preschool, toddler.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
So you weren't surprised at all
Not at
when
all.
he came
I had
out?
no idea what the word transgender meant at all until Jesse told me. And then it just kind of all made sense, and I'm thinking, oh my God, yeah, this is really who he is. Yeah. So it wasn't a shock or a surprise, it was just, and even when I go back through the albums now, it's just like, yep. And even things that he would say to me, it all made total sense, yeah.
Lots of challenges working your way through the medical system, through the psychiatric system, through all of the different systems that are in place.
Yeah.
what's the biggest challenge, if there is one?
Jumping through hoops, because there are certain protocols and procedures that you have to follow, but it seems such a long process. We've been doing this for 3 years now, and we've gone to psychiatrists, we've gone to psychologists, we've gone to therapists, we've seen the doctor, we've jumped through all the hoops, and we're still jumping through hoops. And I know the medical system has to make sure that this is really real. But it is really real. And so it's very frustrating for a transgender person to have to keep proving themselves constantly, all the time.
And going out of town to do that.
And going out of town to do it, because we have to go to Vancouver all the time and stuff. So it's very, very difficult to have to, you know, keep doing that. Yeah, it's exhausting actually. Yeah.
Well, hopefully the fundraiser will help.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jane.
Oh, thank you.
The fundraiser, again, it's taking place September the 16th at the Rod and Gun in Parksville. We're going to have Kerri Isham back one more time on this show. In the meantime, here is Melanie Panetta with a first installment of a new series. Well, it's an old series brought back again. It's Sprott Shaw's Hired Learning. Does she have what it takes to be a groundkeeper with the Vancouver Canadians? I know that I would definitely get fired from a groundskeeper position, and if you don't believe me, just come and have a look at my own garden. You're watching The Daily on Shaw TV Channel 4, and as we have already mentioned, this particular episode is dedicated to a young man named Jesse Moxam. We are raising money so that he can have top surgery because he's a transgendered teen, born female, knows with all his being that he is meant to live in this world as a male. Now, top surgery for transgendered is usually covered by MSP, is it not, Kerri?
Yeah, it's covered by MSP. When you get the final sign-off from the doctor, there's an up to 2-year waiting list. So the reason I wanted to help Jesse is because I want him to be able to get his surgery, and even if we can cut off 6 months or a year, it's really important that Jesse gets the surgery done now. Important for his mental health and for him to be who he really is.
What did you see as being so important to dedicate all the time that you have as a volunteer to raise this money? How do you think his life is going to be better?
Well, I think when Jesse gets his top surgery, he's just going to fly. And the reason I wanted to invest in him is because I know that he's going to go out and he's going to make a difference in the world. And if I can be a part of something like that, then I'm willing to dedicate 100% of my time.
Excellent. Thank you. Short and sweet. What are we going to talk about in this little bridge? Well, all we want to do is engage you and make sure that you know how important this fundraiser is for Jesse and the things that he's going to go forward and do in the world. The fundraiser takes place on September the 16th from 4 until 7 at the Rod and Gun in Parksville. You can purchase your tickets with PayPal through Kerri's website at powerupworkshops.com. You can pick them up in Nanaimo at Rich One Beauty Salon or Catwalk Fashions, who also sponsors us here on The Daily. And you can also donate to a bank account that has been set up at Coastal Community Credit Union if you can't make the fundraiser on the 16th, or you can donate some items. That would help as well. Thanks for watching this edition of The Daily. We'll see you on the 16th.